Hello everyone and welcome back to the final part of the iHack project. In this episode we're going to look at the benchmarks, the FAQs, a couple of extra things I've done, and just generally wrap up the entire project, and we'll see what happens in there. I haven't actually planned too much in this at the moment, so we'll just wing it and see how it goes. Okay then, so since the last episode in which I installed OS X, which went really well by the way, I had a couple of snags, but it was fine to install, and I think the video came out pretty well as well. So things I've added into the build since the last episode, I've actually added a Wi-Fi adapter. So I got this thing. It is the TP-Link, what is it? Okay, yeah, so it's the TL WDN4800. So you can see it there. All my parts will be listed anyway. And this cost me about another, I would say, I think it was like £27 or something like that, and it actually takes up the PCI Express slot. So what that means is it's actually in the way of my main PCI slot, which a graphics card will go into, but I don't have a graphics card in this because I don't need it, so that's all fine. If you want to put a graphics card into this build, exactly this build, then get a normal PCI Wi-Fi adapter, or an external one, whatever you like, that is compatible with OS X, and then you have space on your motherboard, because literally it is like right below the first PCI slot. So just be careful when choosing your parts. Make sure it all fits together and you're not gonna run out of space. The reason why I chose this one's because it was cheap, it works natively within OS X, and I didn't need a graphics card in this computer, so I was fine. Another thing to note about my build is that I have one stick of 8GB RAM. The reason I've done this is because I want to upgrade, and as I will be upgrading to 2 sticks of this as soon as I can. And the reason why I've done this is because I want to make use of the whole 32GB that I am allowed on this motherboard, or that it lets me. If you're not bothered by maxing it out, then just go for the 2x4GB sticks, because right now I'm not getting the most out of my system. If you run RAM in one channel mode when it's a dual channel motherboard, then you're missing out on some optimization, or it's like not as efficient. So the reason why I bought one is because I'm going to upgrade soon and have 16GB running in dual channel mode, which gives about a 10% performance boost when you're running dual channel. So yeah, if you just want 8GB, then get 2x4. If you want more, then get 8GB sticks, and make sure you fill at least 2 slots. I've done this obviously because I said I'm upgrading as soon as I can. Right then, as you can see, I'm currently recording on my iMac. This is Logic Pro 9. I was going to get 10, but I really didn't see why I should invest another £140 because I don't have that kind of money at the moment. But Logic Pro 9 is really good. I have also, to install it, I have the physical disk version here, which is the last version they've done of physical disks. If you want Logic Pro 10, you have to download like the entire 40GB of the sound libraries and stuff. So to install this, I had to have an optical drive. Now, my optical drive is installed. It was from my old PC when I first built my PC. So my standard gaming PC doesn't have an optical drive. And when I built my first PC ever, I had an optical drive in that. I changed the case. I put everything in my new case for my PC, but my optical drive kind of was stuck in my old case because I tightened it up too much, or the screws had been rounded off, so I couldn't get it out. So I had to mutilate my old case in order to get my optical drive out and put it in my iMac. And I think it's better off in my iHack anyway, because if I'm going to do audio stuff, I'm going to need a way to burn discs, because I like to burn golden discs for storage sake and stuff. So I think it's better off in this anyway. And if you want to install stuff, just buy an optical drive. There's no compatibility issues, just install one and you're set to go. Okay then, right now we're going to go over into the iHack and we're going to look at some benchmarks and some comparisons, and so we're going to see how it matches up against the other iMacs and systems. Now for a quick comparison between the available iMacs, I've chosen to go for the cheapest one, which is the 25.1-inch iMac, and the most expensive stock 27-inch iMac. And just for kicks, I've also included the full specification, every tick box is checked iMac, which is very expensive. And we're going to be comparing those with my iHack that I've built. So moving on to CPUs, we can see that the stock iMacs runs some form of i5. I believe the 21.5-inch iMac runs the i5-3330S, but that's just my best guess from what forums have told me. But the 27-inch definitely runs the i5-3470. They run at 2.7 GHz and 3.4 GHz. And then the full specification, you can upgrade to an i7-3770 at 3.5 GHz, and I've chosen to go with the i7-4770K at 3.5 GHz for my build. You can see that they have a 3.2 GHz and 3.8 GHz turbo speed for the stock iMacs, but the 3770 and the 4770K can run at 3.9 GHz using the Intel Turbo technology. Looking at all of these, you can see I've definitely beat every single one on the CPU. Obviously the lower ends because they're i5s, but also the higher end because we're using a more modern CPU chipset, since the iMac is running on a 3770 and the iHack is running on a 4770K. The K means it's also available for overclocking, which is very, very handy. Moving on to the motherboard, I can't really do much to compare them apart from compare the in and out. So, all of the Macs, no matter what they are, because they're unibody, have the same ports. Here is a picture of the back of them. Whilst it looks pretty, it only gives you a headphone, SDXC card slot, 4x USB 3, 2x Thunderbolt Gigabit Ethernet slots. This isn't exactly groundbreaking, and the SDXC card slot is also unreliable. I believe I have the same in my MacBook Pro, and it's just not really worked in the past. Moving on to my iHack, the motherboard I chose was a Gigabyte Z87X-OC edition. This means it is built for overclocking and has all these fancy buttons which I'm not actually going to use. But let's look at the I/O it gives us. It gives us 2 USB 2 slots, 6 USB 3 slots, 2 HDMI ports, a display port which is technically better than HDMI, but they're not directly in competition. It also gives us a PS2 slot in case we needed to use an older mouse, and then a standard Gigabit Ethernet with Sony Philips digital interface format, optical out and audio out. Already we can see we're way past what the iMacs offer in terms of pure I/O, but let's just look at the motherboard a bit more. On the inside we have 6 SATA slots, PCI 3.0 and PCIe slots for further expansion. So yeah, we kind of got them beat on that as well. So graphics, this is one we are hands down going to lose. The basic iMac comes with Intel Iris Pro. I'm not really sure on the details of this, but it's also integrated and not exactly very powerful, but it does the job just like the iHack Intel integrated HD 4600 that we're using. The higher end iMacs use a dedicated graphics card, which the website says is a GeForce GTX 775M with 2 GB and a GeForce GTX 780M with 4 GB. Honestly, we do not need to outdo them on this area because I'm building an audio workstation. The Intel Integrated HD can run 3 1080p monitors at the same time, so I'm not really bothered about this. If you are bothered about this, then just go buy a discrete graphics card and you can instantly beat them anyway for maybe £200. However, looking at it from a pure price difference, we can see that the Intel Integrated HD 4600 is absolutely free. We don't need to pay for an upgrade to get this. We don't need to buy anything or spend money on it. It's just free with the CPU. Memory isn't exactly too much different. The Macs give 2 sticks of 4GB 1600 MHz DDR3 RAM. If you want to upgrade it, then you can have up to 32GB at 1600 MHz DDR3 as well, but that'll cost you an extra £480. On the other hand, what we chose to go with was Corsair Vengeance RAM, one 8GB stick at 1600 MHz DDR3, and the motherboard supports up to 32GB. If you want to, you can go higher or lower using different combinations of RAM sticks, but I chose to go with the 1x8GB so I can get the full 32GB later on. In terms of pure price and upgradability, just the amount of flexibility we have with this means we've hands down won this section as well. In terms of hard drive, which is something that's slightly changed since I've started doing this series, the lower end iMac comes with a 1TB 5400 RPM mechanical hard drive, and the stock 27-inch iMac also comes with a mechanical hard drive, but it runs at 7200 RPM. This has changed slightly because when I last looked it was still running the same 5400 RPM hard drive, so at least they've upgraded it slightly and also upgraded the cost by about £50. If you want the full spec iMac, you can go for the 1TB of flash storage, which is actually really good, and on pure specifications it does beat the 840 Pro that I have selected for my iHack. However, it costs an extra £800. and that is just not something I'm willing to pay for that amount of storage. Even if I were to get multiple drives of mine, I don't think it would come up to that amount, that price. So in terms of pure price to performance, we have got them beat on every single level as well. Looking at extra points, I can say that Wi-Fi is actually optional. You don't need to buy a Wi-Fi card. I did anyway, just because I like to have everything in there. I'm a completionist. But the case also gives us 2 more USB 3 slots and 2 more USB 2 slots. So in total that brings up our I/O to even greater heights. It also has room for expansion of upgrades, which is what I was saying in the motherboard section where we have the SATA slots and such. One of the key parts is this is easily overclockable. Because I went for the 4770K version with a motherboard that allows for overclocking and easy overclocking at that, I could just buy an aftermarket cooler later on and overclock it to whatever I want. I would say 4.5 gigahertz will be the next step, and then probably 5 gigahertz after that. Now we look at the costs of each iMac available compared to my iHack. The lower end costs £1,149. This has gone up from £1,099 since I started making this series. I don't really know why, so we'll just say it's gone up. The higher end 27-inch iMac costs £1,749 at stock, and you know, for what you're getting, it's very, very expensive, which is the same with the 21.5-inch iMac. You're not, for that amount of money, you're not getting a lot in terms of pure specifications. I believe the screen is actually covering most of that cost. Here's where things get funny. If you want the full specification 27-inch iMac, it's going to run you £3,349. This is just incredible. This is absolutely bonkers. I do not recommend doing this because it's just not efficient at all for the performance you're getting. £800 for a hard drive is just ridiculous. And now let's compare this to my iHack that I built myself. £800 and 59 pennies. And then if we go back and look at everything else, like I was saying, I beat them on pretty much everything apart from the graphics cards, which can be easily upgraded anyway. So in short, I would say that iHack has won this, hands down. However, we can add more pain to this by saying we can build this even cheaper if we wanted to. If we want to go for an i5 CPU, you can minus £60 from that cost. If you want to go for a normal case, you can also minus £40. You can select a different kind of RAM, or just go for the cheaper 2x4 GB sticks for the 8 GB total. You can also get the Z87X-UD3H motherboard, which is the exact same motherboard, just slightly lower quality and less overclocking features. If you don't want a Wi-Fi card as well, you can also take that away. And the lowest price, based on this build that I have come up with, is £624 and 59 pennies. And you're still winning against most of the iMacs in most of the categories. In short, I am very happy with the build I've come up with. Okay, and welcome to the benchmarking section. And for your information, this is the second time I've had to do this because I had a power cut, which was really annoying because I was literally just finishing up and then I had a power cut, lost all the, whatever it was, like 10-20 minutes of footage that I was recording. Okay, so the first test I ran was a disk speed test, and the reason why I've done this first, and I'm showing you this first, is because NovaBench is slightly different results than what this gave me. So this is a dedicated program to detecting the write and read speeds of your hard drive, and look at that, 494 megabytes a second write speed and 517 megabytes a second read speed. And this is absolutely incredible. This is doing like the stress test I put it on. Oh, this isn't, I thought this was the actual program, sorry. The stress test that I put it on was like 5 GB file, and it just done it in a flash. It's just so good. I mean, look what it can handle. And I've also done this same test on my MacBook Pro, which is from, I think, 2011. Are you ready for the results? Are you ready? Are you ready for the results? Boom. It's absolutely ridiculous. 50. It's ridiculous, it's pointless, and it's just not good. And they charge you ridiculous amounts. This cost me £1,400 for this MacBook Pro, and they give me a shitty hard drive with which that likes to just... So I don't know why they would give us a stupid hard drive. The minimum hard drive you should have is 7,200 RPM. That is the bare minimum, and even that is obsolete in most cases. Like, you can get 10,000 RPM drives, but honestly, we should be moving towards mass storage SSD drives by now because they're just so much better. I know it's not cost effective because they're really expensive. Again, so this is the NovaBench score I got. As you can see, it's really damn impressive. 1120. So first off, this is running at stock speed, and this is also running with 1 channel of RAM. So the RAM should be slightly higher, The CPU can also be higher if I overclock it later in the future. I could get away with overclocking it a bit now on the stock cooler, but I wouldn't really recommend that, just because I don't want to risk it. But, you know, obviously it's doing really well as it is. The graphics test, that's really stupidly low because obviously we don't have a discrete graphics card in here. If you want to boost this up by like 200 points, then get a GTX 670 or something in, that's really cheap, and it will be really good. So the graphics test, we can, you know, obviously increase this by a lot. 1120, you might think, oh, that's a little low, isn't it? I didn't, you know, you might not know how they rate things and what the number means. So let's just go to the Novabench Top Max. Mac Pro from mid 2010, dual CPUs, average RAM 16 gigabytes, average gigahertz 2.9, sample size whatever, 1300. Yeah, all the other things, we're ahead of them. We're like third on the system of top Macs in Novabench. This is a very good system. I'm very happy with the benchmark that this has got. And obviously, like I said, if you have a dedicated graphics card, you will be way ahead of the pack. If you overclock your CPU, you'll be even further ahead of the pack. If you have dual channel RAM, you'll be even better off. So basically the Novabench, what we've built with these specs, is absolutely incredible. I'm very happy with this. It's just a beast of a machine. The last benchmarking test I done, again this is for the second time because I had a power cut, like I was saying, is Geekbench. Now I didn't want to pay for the to be able to do the 64-bit version, so I just done the 32-bit version. So this is just the specs. It thinks it's a Mac Pro, which is pretty funny. If I right click on this, it actually thinks it's a Mac Pro. So that's a pretty neat and funny. And it's got a single core score of 3,273. Obviously if we overclocked, this would be higher, but this is stock. Multi-core score of 13,364. Okay, obviously again, using all cores, it will be higher if we overclocked. Now let's look at the benchmarks. 32-bit single core, 3,187. We have just come top of the line already. We're just like, yep, Mac benchmarks, just boop, right at the top, straight away, not even overclocked. I'm really happy with that score. Obviously it'll be higher if we overclocked, but just looking at all these things where we beat, it's just so good. I'll put a link to this this page that you can look at in the description if I remember. Now we're going to look at 32-bit multi-core. Ours was 13,364, or mine even. And obviously we're not going to beat the Mac Pros. They have dual core systems, they're running on dual processor systems, they're running on 12 cores. There's really, you know, not much you can do to beat them. They have dedicated graphics card and everything. It's just, you know, we're not going to beat them. Look, 25,024, but let's look at things we can beat. We're still beating Mac Pros. We're in the same range as the Mac Pros still. And these are dual processor systems running 8 cores, and they're in the 13,000s. And one of the early Mac Pros from 2009, and the closest thing on this screen obviously was an iMac 27-inch late 2012, lower score than what we have built. I'm still very happy with these benchmark results. Like, even though we're not top of this screen, I didn't expect to be because this is a single CPU system, we are still basically top of our price range, and it's incredible what you can build when you put your mind to it. Okay, here we are for the last time looking over my system. Of course, I'm actually recording using the iMac or iHack again. So, first question, and probably the most common one as well, is will this work on AMD? Short answer, yes. Long answer, no. Technically, yes, it is possible, but I really wouldn't do it because right now, Mac OS X runs on Intel machines, and it's just so much easier to build an Intel machine. I mean, the reason why I picked half of these parts and Intel is because it runs natively in OS X. It just works without any external drivers, which is why I didn't have to install that many when I was installing UniBeast. So yes, there are ways to get it to work on AMD, but it's going to be a lot of trouble, and I mean a lot of trouble. Things will be broken, it won't really be smooth. I just would not recommend it at all. If you're building something like this, put the money into it, honestly, because you don't want something that you're going to just faff around with for hours and hours and hours on end every single day just to get it to work because something just broke. So technically yes, realistically no, it does not work on AMD machines. The second question, my build has a slower clock speed in both RAM and CPU. I had this problem when I loaded up this for the first time as well. When I first installed it, it was running at like 3.2 gigahertz and the RAM was running at 33 megahertz. This is easily rectified. Just go into your BIOS and change it. That's all it is. It's just for some reason the BIOS just underclocks it for no reason. I don't know why. So press F12 or something like that. Go into your BIOS, change it. Literally all you need to do is change the multiplier for the CPU to up to 3.4, whatever it is, the option is. It's just so easy. One of the more interesting ones was a problem that I also had. Somebody wanted to know what they should do if, when they boot up from their hard drive after installing, is it Multibeast? Unibeast, sorry. They boot off the hard drive and it's just an Apple logo spinning, you know, the spinning little thing underneath it forever. And that actually happened to me when I'd done it. It didn't come across on this video because I thought it would be, you know, a rare occasion, but it happens to someone else. So if this happens to you, just look in the description and there should be a line of what you should type in and what you should do. So I'm actually gonna find it. Okay, he said, when I install Mac OS X and boot from my hard drive, it stays in the Apple loading screen forever. Do you know why? And I replied, get to the point where you choose one to boot into with the Apple with the eyes on the screen, so you know, Chimera I think the screen is called, and then choose the drive, not the USB stick. So choose your hard drive that you want to boot up from and then hit any key. This will bring up a dialog box and type in that, and this is in quotation marks, -V space -X space PCI root UID equals 0 space graphics enabler equals no, and then just look below for the actual, you know, like capitals and stuff. And once you've done that, you should see like a bunch of text lines come up, and this will basically boot it into safe mode. If you can't boot into safe mode, note down the line that it freezes on. Just write down, so it froze on blah blah blah, it said this, and then take that to a forum. Okay, the final question I'm going to answer, because I don't really want to spend so much more time on this, but I'll answer any questions in the comments anyway. Okay then, that's the end of this series. It's been a nice ride. I have a nice computer out of it, and you've hopefully gained some knowledge. So thank you very much for watching. All the previous episodes will be in annotations around somewhere, I don't know. So just, if you've missed any, go back, look over them. If you have any questions, put them down in the comments. I shall answer them. And thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.